Welcome back. It's time for game 2 here, and it is the winners match as we get further in the tournament. Oh, I said forward there. Further in the tournament, getting closer and closer towards the quarterfinals on Saturday. The next match going to be State going up against ForGG. Make sure to get on Twitter before we start talking about this match. Of course, hashtag IEM, aka Intellectual Masters, and get talking, get tweeting, and let us know what you think about Moonglade's hair today.
I tied it back once again. You know,
Yes.
It's actually pretty hot here, especially in the casting booth. So, you know, I was like, you know what?
You're telling me?
I'm telling you, well, you experienced it. So, but I heard a lot from Calaris already. So I'm like, okay. You know.
I like when you have your hair back, but you have that one streak down the sides.
Oh.
It's kind of like evil.
Yeah, it's sexy.
It is sexy too. I mean,
should do
evil,
it.
sexy, same thing.
Well, I'll get it fixed up after this.
All right,
just
thank
for you, Apollo.
Just for me?
Just for you, mate.
And all your fans, Moonglade. You got hundreds of thousands of fans watching.
Hundreds of thousands? I wish. I wish they all followed me on Twitter at least.
Let's talk about the game and tournament.
No.
Do you want to talk about the tournament? We can if you want to.
Todd's getting
I mean,
jealous.
Todd's just like sinking in this
His
conversation.
wave is getting jealous.
He's like, I wish they talk about my hair. All right, let's take a look at the bracket then and get back on track here at the Intellect Extreme Masters, as we've played 2 games already. And I had the pleasure, as I was walking around, to catch map number 1, only map number 1 of Lambo versus 4GG. And it was going in the direction, and it should have ended in favor of Lambo, and then 4GG should have taken the next 2 maps in a row, unless something crazy happened, but that's the way it was looking to me. 4GG wasn't looking that bright in game number 1. He was making a lot of micro mistakes and so on. So
Yeah.
not too sure of his current form, but he did squeeze the win.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at his recent results, even trying to qualify for Gamescom, because, you know, he was the wild card seed here, he ended up losing out to Lilbo, I believe, in those qualifiers. So, you know, he's been having some trouble against these European, these foreign Protosses recently.
Well, you know, foreign Pronos here is State, and he looked great. He opened up the day fantastic, you know. He wasn't super happy with how well he played, but it was a convincing victory that he managed to pick up.
Yeah, he was actually looking really in form, very surprised. Like, I got to speak to him before the match. I'm like, are you confident? Can you win? He's like, yeah, I can. I'm like, oh, we never get to see you play, so I don't know.
What I like about it is that it just wasn't like, you know, 2-0 where like he does like 2 timings and kind of kills him. Map number 2, you really saw like how good he is at both harassing, macroing, like doing everything at the same time. And this kind of game is usually the hardest kind of game that you can try and play. So that was very impressive to me.
But it feels like he's playing a game of Mortal Kombat now. He's defeated one opponent, and now he's gone up the ladder to another one. And this is, of course, a more difficult opponent in the likes of 4GG. Though there's been a little bit of question marks with his results recently. I mean, I did take a bit of a closer look, especially, you know, with the WCS. He played in Toronto. He got eliminated from group stages in the round of 16. Kung Fu Panda was a bit of a surprising loss for him, and then Bunny just closed him out after that. I think he got top 32 at DreamHack, which is a little bit surprising, but he played against Hart in a best of 3, so
yeah,
where do you judge 4GG right now? I mean, you've been looking as well.
Yeah, I've been having a quick look, and I definitely don't think he's in the form he was last year, that's for sure. Like, when he did win that DreamHack and he had all that success, yeah, he certainly seems to either, you know, be in a slump or has taken a break. He's slowly getting back into it, and he has a chance here at Gamescom, but I'm not sure if he's up to the task.
What do you think, Todd, about 4GG?
I mean, we still have to see his form like properly. Like you said, he looked a little bit shaky against Lambo, but Lambo, I heard, is pretty good in Zerg versus Terran, so it's going to be a much bigger test here against somebody like State, who showed such strong form in his first match against Utomo.
Well, 4GG is a player that absolutely is always aiming for BlizzCon. In 2013, he was ranked roughly 25. He improved on that a little bit last year. He was like 22, just kind of outside the top 16 ranking. But this year, he's not quite there yet. He's mid-30s again, like a lot of other players. And for a player like 4GG, he's always aiming for that, but he's not close.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he's at the 30s at this point, he's going to have to win a tournament or 2 to actually get there. You know, it's getting to that point at the end of the year. Like, it's really not many events left over for him to score points in. So I'm not sure.
How well do you think that are we going to see State, you know, smash this kid? Are we going to see 4GG do it? What are your thoughts here, Todd?
I think State, if he plays, you know, as well as he played in the first match, and, you know, 4GG is not on his A game, he kind of struggles, like we saw him recently against, for example, Kung Fu Panda back at WCS.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really tough match for him. I think he might just crumble and lose to State there, so wouldn't be surprised if that happened. At the same time, though, if he shows up on his old form, like 4GG, you know, is that guy that's usually doesn't lose to anybody unless they're Korean, so we'll see.
What do you think about State here? He's got his little notepad out.
He's
and,
buff.
Well, I wasn't going to go in that direction, but
Well, I guess.
yeah, I mean,
that's true.
I guess compared to a lot of StarCraft nerds, he may be. But looking at his notepads, he's brought that out, and we've seen that a couple of times from players in StarCraft. Not that much. A lot of players just kind of think about their opponent and know something about them, but he's obviously got something very specific written down about ForGG. Do you think is this something that's just going to assist him a lot, and why don't others do it?
Well, it's always good to have keep it refreshed in your mind with the styles of these players, and ForGG definitely is very stylistic. He's not like a Terran that throws out anything. He has his ways, so it's important to write that down. And he even said that he was very prepared for Protoss versus Terran coming into this tournament.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is ForGG's style? What could possibly have been written down there if he had something on ForGG?
I think if you watched all of the recent VODs of ForGG, he probably wrote down like what ForGG likes to do as far as like openers go, and so he wanted to make sure he wasn't going to forget any of those. You know, in a lot of situations you have that. You know, for example, even commentators, some of them take written notes, some other things that they can remember everything, so they don't. In this case, I do think that taking written notes definitely can help you at times remember stuff that you wouldn't have remembered otherwise. So I really like that State's doing this. In Warcraft 3, actually, there is a legendary player that did that. His nickname is Sky, and I think even Grubby started doing that at some point because it's really hard to remember every single game you ever played or watched, whereas if you write it down, you can just consult that anytime.
I agree. It's just funny that you mentioned Warcraft 3 as you watch it on the monitor title. But
Todd's reliving the past.
Thanks, back in the past here.
Throwing him under the bus.
One thing also to notice, we're probably not going to see Dark Templar openings again in this series after using it twice in a row last time.
That's the mind game, though.
I guess you could take it both ways. Like it's either a super mind game or it's like never going to happen again, but it's going to be in the back of the mind of ForGG. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. And I mean, did ForGG even get a glimpse of what happened?
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I've just heard that the game is ready, so we're going to jump straight into that. So, without further ado, let's head to the commentary team for this one to see which way this is going and who is going to be the first player from Group C to go through to the quarterfinals.
Thank you very much, boys. We are excited as well to figure out who is going to be the first player today to advance to the quarterfinals of the Intox 3 Masters in Cologne. And Pick, I want to ask a little bit about the notebook. You know, some people like to do it, like Todd said, especially in Warcraft 3, we had a couple guys. I think it's mostly, if you watch a bunch of VODs, you kind of look at the openings they go for on specific maps. And it could be like, in the start, of course, in the tournament, you do your homework, but you're not sure yet which maps you actually end up playing. And it's always like, okay, you end up playing Cactus Valley. Maybe if he has seen 1 or 2 games from ForGG on Cactus Valley, he's like, all right, on Cactus Valley, he likes to do maybe Gasless Fast expand into 3 racks, because it's not the greatest replay map out there.
Yeah.
Do you think it's something like that?
I think that's one of the best ways to do it, because then you can save those really minute tells, and that's what you're looking for. You don't go into a tournament necessarily saying, I saw him do this on this map, so I'm definitely going to hard counter it with this. It's also saying, I'm going to remember that this is a possibility. So the moment I see one small little tip, I see an SCV at a certain timing, I see a pylon at a certain timing, one of those little tells, it gives you the information, and then you can go into that hard sort of pre-planned reaction.
Because even though all these pro players, of course, have multiple builds for multiple matchups on different maps, at the end of the day, it often comes down to 2 or 3 slight variations, but they won't suddenly do something they have never done before on Cactus Valley, especially because this is a map that's been around for a little while now. It's not as new as Dash Terminal or Terraform, and there are definitely way more games out there from ForGG on Cactus Valley than there are some other maps. So, you know, limiting down the options of things you could potentially face can definitely help. I'm excited for this series because I was actually one of the casters, makes it sound really special, but I actually casted the game of ForGG at WCS Season 2, one of the biggest upsets I think we had in Season 2, where he lost 0-2 against Kung Fu Panda. And that was not a lucky series for Kung Fu Panda. That was not Kung Fu Panda playing out of the ordinary. It was ForGG doing really weird stuff and things just not working out. And I will never forget that game in Iron Fortress, because I was stunned that a player as good as ForGG could just open up with no scout, go Reaper into CC on the low ground, into 3 racks, and just rally all the units, cross-map Iron Fortress. 1 Oracle flies into his base, and he loses everything. I was like, wow, like you know that happens on Mid-Master League, but that's not supposed to happen in WCS Premier League.
It's been a little bit shaky from him at times. I do remember even in the round of 32 thinking, wow, he barely made it out of some of those games. You know, a lot of near misses with death lately. And It's kind of odd to see because ForGG is normally this guy he's such a creature of habit in the past. People say, oh, he's a bit predictable, he's a little bit over aggressive, and you know what he's going to do. So that's why, you know, even if you feel he's stronger than you, you've got a good shot against him. But lately he has been diversifying a little bit and sometimes making some brash decisions.
I feel in the foreign scene there are a lot of people who either absolutely love ForGG and love everything that he does. You know, obviously I'm thinking of Nathanius, my Terran brother in arms, who's just a crazy ForGG fanboy, always takes notes, always loves watching his builds, his replays, his streams. And then there are a lot of people who still don't truly believe in the hype. On which side are you leaning towards?
Oh, you know, I really like ForGG. I've actually watched some of Nathanius's analysis of ForGG's builds when I'm learning Terran, and I love that. But then when I play against him and he kills me with Hellions and Banshees, that's when I start to dislike him a little bit more, because he can do it to me 3 times in a row and I still won't stop it.
Well, let's see if he's going to be able to do it against this man, the surprising Protoss. Even a surprise that he's here, but he looked so good in his first series of the day. It is State. Good old Ryan. He's been around for a long time. Even though he's, you know, calling him a veteran in StarCraft 2 may sound a little weird, because there are probably a couple of people out there that started watching StarCraft recently and barely know who he is, but he's been around for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels of skill players play at, and he might not be a veteran in the sense of someone like Stefano, who won these big championships, but within the American scene, he's been a guy who's taken out a lot of titles. He's been at the top of that scene for a long time, so he really has a lot of experience, but he is going to have to make it through this guy over here, this Korean powerhouse, spawning the bottom right of Cactus Valley. It is ForGG.
Definitely a big moment for this man, as I like that Sean brought it up. When it comes to WCS, when it comes to BlizzCon, you really expect a player like ForGG to at least make it once, because he's living in the foreign scene, and we've seen it in the past. Players like Hyun, MC that lived abroad, they always collected so many points because you have the option to go to so many tournaments. Of course, this year, a lot of the Koreans, you know, it's more fair for them, the ones that live in Korea, because you got both SSL and GSL, so there is plenty of points for them to gather as well. But I am surprised that a player like ForGG hasn't made it to BlizzCon once, and again, things are looking a little rough, unless he finishes maybe top 2, top 1 over here. That's really what he kind of needs to solidify himself high up in that ranking.
At the moment, it's, you know, he might not even think he has a very good chance at it. It's as much just trying to get to a top high finish, a top 4, something like that. Interestingly enough, though, looks like State's doing something sneaky. This is clearly his plan, no matter what on this map, not scouting, going right across here, and he is going to be proxying a very fast Stargate for an Oracle.
And much more important, he drew first blood. Look at this.
The Scantipede, man, that's bad luck. You do not kill those. Is it a Scantipede, a Scanted, something like that. But you kill that, man, it brings the Cactus Valley bad luck on you. The gods, the Cactuar gods will look unkindly on that man.
It was going to be Command Center first over here for ForGG, as we saw, and he's going to follow it up with a 3-Rex. It's a build we saw it being used yesterday as well, I believe, by Fantasy, or it was Innovation, one of the two.
Fantasy, yeah.
Yes, Fantasy went for this opening. It is going to be a very quick Stargate. State kind of rolling the dice, hoping that he would find ForGG over here on the right top side of the map, and he's like, well, nope, that's not going to happen. Now he's going to check the right bottom, and I think the better case scenario would still be ForGG spawning in the left top side, because that is slightly quicker.
Yeah.
This is one of these moments, as Letot likes to say, 66%, that's good enough for me, you know, like, let's just go for it. Well, unfortunately, this is one of these moments where it's 1 out of 3, and ForGG is going to be quite far away for these Oracles. So despite the fact that it's proxied of the second pylon, a very quick proxy, this Oracle still has quite a bit of distance to cover before it reaches to the main base. The one plus side of this pick is that it will have more energy by the time it arrives into the main base.
More zappy zaps coming out of that Oracle. And interestingly enough, a Twilight Council going down at home behind this State. Ooh, looks like he has some, maybe a sneaky plan to follow this up as well. Definitely a 1-base style ForGG coming with this SCV scan. Oh, he skims it just barely, but I don't think he'd see that.
I don't think he saw it either. I'd be so surprised. But you could ask yourself, why did I just see something beep on the minimap real quick? Why did I see a glimpse of blue or red, whatever colors ForGG is playing with? Maybe, but I don't think he's aware of it, because he had like 0.1 second to actually see it. The Marines are positioned the way you want them, though, and the Oracle is actually going to lose this fight because it was shooting at the SCV first. Well, no, it barely wins it. I actually thought that because it was shooting at the SUV first, that the 5 Marines were able to kill that Oracle. But still, though, you want to do more than just killing Marines.
Oh, this SCV scout is so important. It spots that there's no Nexus down. Oh, now ForGG knows that he is up against a 1-base follow-up. And this opening of his is just so fantastic in this position.
I love what ForGG is doing over here. Just evacuate, abandon the low ground immediately. You're doing fine economically as long as you have 2 command centers or 2 orbital commands. Don't make the game harder on yourself than it should be. Don't defend on the low ground, which is 10 times harder. And if you guys wonder why, it's because there is no ramp going into the natural. But of course there's a big ramp going into the main base. So Blink Stalkers have the time of their life on a map where there's no ramp. I love this call by ForGG. I think it's very smart, and I think it's the only correct call he could make.
And he really needs the 1 missile turret with this reaction as well. He's not sure if there's DTs or not, so he's just being absolutely safe against everything. He's going to be pumping out those Marines 3 at a time. And look at this, combat shields rather than stim. Such a smart decision, because it does take a full minute less to upgrade rather than that stim upgrade.
Yeah, I think it's okay. The only downside to this is I saw a game recently of Hitman, where Hitman made this work in a scenario where I thought there was absolutely no way that this is ever going to work, where he just blinked past the bunkers, and the Terran he was playing against, just, I think it was Masa, but I'm not 100% sure, just like removed all the units from the bunker. But if you don't have stim, then Stalkers will just kite your Marines into the main base. But I feel, however, that ForGG is just going to have too much, and I think it's very important that if that would happen, that ForGG always leaves 1 or 2 units in the bunker. I think it's a mistake that Terran players sometimes make. They chase with everything. You can't blink past this though, State. I really don't think you should try to do this.
Oh, he's coming up here trying to just blink back and not lose any Stalkers. They are getting very heavily bruised though, only picking off a pair of Marines, dealing a bit of damage to the rest of that bio. No sign of a Nexus for State just yet. Looks like he wants to keep pushing in here, but that is just too much defense. He has to put down this Nexus, has to go for the contain.
Exactly, that's what I would do as well. Warp in the sentry, there we go. He starts warping in the sentry immediately, and then drop the Nexus. And it's not an ideal scenario, because you know right now that your opponent is severely outmining you. 30 workers against 23. Of course, it's on 1 base, but you know, it doesn't really matter. Mules overmine SCVs, so to speak. They don't have to wait for an SCV to be done mining. So he's still dropping 2 mules at a time, and he's mining way more money right now than State. This is a position that I've been in quite often, as I too like to play dirty proto strategies. And I would be very worried right now if I was playing this game, because you just haven't done a whole lot of economic damage.
No, it's going to be a very tricky transition from here. It is possible because of the force field on this ramp mechanic and the delayed medevacs. The first medevac only just coming out now for ForGG, but it's very, very difficult. And of course, I do feel like State needs to do something a little bit special, a little bit tricky to follow this up.
I think he's just going to pick up these 2 Widow Mines and fly the Widow Mines into the main base, because there is a chance that State does not have any sort of detection yet. You open up with an Oracle and then with Blink Stalkers. Well, how much crazy stuff can a Protoss truly do with 1 base?
State's actually not looking for this. Surprisingly, normally you'd have those Stalkers.
Force field. That's a bad force field, I think. Oh my god, so many units squeezing through it. It's going to be very easy for ForGG to secure his low ground. Even though State's micro is good, there is too much DPS in this Terran army, and you mentioned it as well. He already has combat shield, so it's a little harder for these Stalkers to pick up these Marines.
You know, this is such an interesting situation. Normally, if the Protoss can keep that contain going for a while, it can really put a lot of pressure on the Terran. But if the Terran can get out as easily as he has just now, this is so brutal. And now with Widow Mines coming in, and there is absolutely no units to stop those Widow Mines burrowing in the main. State's trying to push in again, getting a decent trade here, but those Widow Mines are about to devastate his mineral line.
Oh my god. I mean, I think right now if I'm State, I would just cancel the Nexus and just go super all in, because there is no transition from this anymore. You've lost quite a few stocks already. You're losing 4, 5, 6 probes. I think on a certain point you just got to cut your losses and be like, all right, I am super all in right now, and I'm okay with that, because that's pretty much the only chance I have. State is, well, he's on 29 probes. Maybe it's, he kind of renewed the container. I'm very surprised that ForGG didn't want to stick around. Maybe ForGG looked at this and be like, all right, I just did economic damage against a Protoss that was on 1 base forever.
Yeah, State did a good job of bullying his way back in there, but he can't maintain the position. I believe Stim is done now, and with 2 medevacs up above a couple of Marauders and a good ball of upgraded Marines, this is just such a good situation for ForGG.
It's really hard to keep up that contain when you know you really haven't done a whole lot of economic damage, when you know you've lost Stalkers already as well. Because if ForGG flies out 2 medevacs to the north side of his main base, unloads all these bio units, and then stims forward, all of your Stalkers are trapped. You know, there will be units coming from the right side and from the north side. There's just nothing you can do anymore, other than blink away via the west side over here, via out of the natural. But State didn't want to put himself in that position, so he's just going to let it go for now. but he knows that he's in a little bit of trouble.
Bit of an awkward blink to try and get out of there. He is going to lose 2 Stalkers here, and that's a loss he cannot afford right now. What does State have to do to get back in this game, Roddy?
Yeah, just be very passive from this point on. Try to squeeze out a Colossus and then hope that ForGG makes, well, that's one way to get back into this game. And then just defend. Hope ForGG tries to drop overly aggressive against the 2-base Protoss, and then you defend. If you snipe 2-3 medevacts, then it's anybody's game again, because then your Colossus count will keep going up. But if one drop does make it into the main base and does a lot of damage, it's going to be extremely difficult.
Oh, this drop coming in here now. It's going to be very powerful, but those Blink Stalkers are in position to shut this down. Jumping on top of that medevac, they are going to kill those Marines very quickly, losing just a couple of Stalkers and a probe or 2 for that.
Yeah, I lost a couple probes, lost Photon Overcharge as well, and ended up losing 2-3 Stalkers. It wasn't as cheap as it could be, because let's not forget, that was a single medevac drop of only 8 Marines. It's not like 4G just sacrificed 2 medevacs full of units. It was just 1. But there was really no other way for State to deal with that.
And here comes the real Force reckoning towards the front. This
Force
is
fields.
the really hard push. It's all about those Force fields stopping this army. This is only a single Colossus for damage output here. Those Marauders already focus firing on it. Takes a lot of damage. 4GG microing his units around this Colossus, running back up into Marauder range. Colossus range is not finished yet.
Yeah, Photon Overcharge is a little late to the party there. I would have used that a little bit quicker. 1 Colossus will fall. Stalker's taking a lot of damage as well. A couple sentries getting picked off. And the supply kind of tells the tale of this story. Even though 4G is not extremely high, whenever Terran is up in supply against Protoss and Protoss doesn't have those heavy, hard-hitting units like Colossus, it's going to be very difficult, especially as soon as Photon Overcharge runs out.
5 barracks production up at home for 4GG. His 3rd command center is finished. This hidden nexus in the corner is such a clever move from State, trying to just defend on 2-base efficiently, but losing those heavy gas units, those sentries, that early Colossus, this just sets him back so far, and it really makes the very idea of holding on against this army cost efficiently one which is almost impossible.
I do like the fact that he went for a couple Zealots, because whenever the Marauders would click on the Colossus, the Zealots can actually do damage, and other than that, you will, most of the time you'll just end up losing Zealots. But this is that one tricky moment when there is no more Photon Overcharge and there is just a single Colossus. 2nd Colossus is almost out though. A couple probes get pulled, because probes actually do soak up a couple shots against Marauders here and there. Colossus on the fire again, but it will live for now. It will still live. Eventually it gets picked off. One more Colossus walks in, but as soon as that one was in a vulnerable position, State knows there was no holding 4GG. Despite the fact that the supply was quite low for 4GG, and he was of course already pretty much mined out in his main base because he dropped so many mules, but he will still be able to take game number 1.
Oh, you know, it's interesting to see State going for such an aggressive strategy and really being willing to kind of throw the dice. I actually think his first Oracle picking up those early 5 Marines was quite an okay trade considering the situation, preserving that Oracle for later use, but really that SCV that came in, scouted no Nexus, that gave 4G the information, and then to miss the force field on the bottom of the ramp, it's just a really bad situation for State.
Yeah. State once again opening up very aggressive in game number 1. Like he said in the interview, we're going to head over to a very small break, and we'll most likely see a much more solid build in game number 2. Alrighty, welcome back to the Intox Stream Masters Day 3, where we are kicking things off with Group C. State played very good in his first series of the day against U-Thermal, but is so far hitting perhaps a bit of a bumpy ride against ForGG.
Taking it back to the notebook. There's just checking out his build orders there, checking out what he wants to do on the next map. He's going to be going into Iron Fortress, so I'm sure he has something special planned here. Another 4-player map, interestingly enough. A map which we see quite often in TVP, but something I think, from what we've seen from State so far, I think he's going to do something really cheesy again. I get that feeling.
Could be, we'll see as we are loading in. There was plenty to talk about in game number 1, and as soon as we introduce the players, we could talk a little bit more about it, because it was an interesting build and it was an interesting game. But over here on the left bottom side of Iron Fortress, we're looking at the main base of our North American Protoss. The first time in a long time he's playing on a stage like this, it is State. Once upon a time part of Quantic Gaming. He's been in a couple of other North American teams. He's always been a Protoss that I really enjoyed watching, especially when he was streaming a lot for a while, and lately he's been flying on the radar a little bit, but definitely showing us that he still has the goods.
Well, he's going to have to bring the goods now to make it through this guy over here. It is ForGG.
You know, Pig, I'm going to go full Nathanis over here, but I'm going to talk about my ladder session a little bit. Just a couple days ago, I played against ForGG on ladder, on Iron Fortress.
Wow, your MMR must be getting very high.
Yeah, you know, I've been grinding a little, I've been putting in the hours. So I played against ForGG and I was like, okay, there's obviously no way I'm going to win this unless I do my cheeky Roddy build and everything goes the way that it's supposed to go. He opens Reaper into CC on the low ground, into a factory follow-up, and then I have one build that's very good against it unless I get a super quick bunker. He didn't get a super quick bunker, so I walk across the map, I kill the Reaper, I kill the command center. I was like, oh my god, like I'm doing it, I'm beating ForGG. Just got shreked on one base. It's like, oh my god, this guy, like why did he do that? Like I was so sad, I was salty for hours, and people were like, Roddy, why are you sad about losing to ForGG? Isn't it kind of normal? It's like, yeah, of course that's normal, but there is like 1 in 100 chance that I can win, and everything was lining up for me to do that, and then I still threw. I was pretty upset with myself. But that is indeed the build that I expect ForGG to go for over here. Just a good old Reaper into an expand on the low ground into a factory follow-up. The same build we saw U-Thermal use, but State looked pretty okay against those openings.
Yeah, just an attempt to get the information with that Reaper opening. State, interestingly enough, hasn't sent out any early probe just yet. And his mindset here, I think from looking at him in that interview, talking to him, he really seemed to be very calm and confident. You know, Sean was asking, hey, are you feeling nervous? It's been a while since you've been on one of these stages. And he was like, nah, I feel good. I'm happy. Life's good. Career's good. StarCraft's good. And I think he's gonna bring that sort of unencumbered, very confident play so far.
I think I love that quote, Big. Life's good, Korea's good, StarCraft's good. That's just pretty much all that matters, right? Like, what more could a man possibly ask for? Of course, State got a tiny bit unfortunate, perhaps, with proxying the Stargate on the north side of Cactus Valley while his opponent spawned in the right bottom side. Like I said, a 66% chance, and unfortunately he didn't hit it. But I still think, and I really want to emphasize on how big this was, that ForGG made an absolutely brilliant call in not being stubborn and not trying to defend the low ground and the main base at the same time. Just be like, all right, I'm mining way more than my opponent right now, even if I float that command center into my main. Let's not be stubborn, let's not try to hold on the low ground. Is that possible? Yes, absolutely, but it's also 5 times more difficult because those stalkers will always be able to poke in. You will always be forced to have all your SFVs there repairing the bunker all the time because, you know, there is no ramp that makes it so much easier. So I really love that call by ForGG. And I still see way too many Terrans trying to be stubborn and defending on the low ground against a one-base Protoss that's super committed, super all-in.
Yeah, especially in a tournament situation like this. If you identify what your opponent's going for, hard counter that as well as you can. Interestingly enough, ForGG, once again, is not opting for any sort of fast Widowmine drop action, going into this 3-rack style, which is coming back into popularity throughout the meta.
Yeah, so he is switching it up quite a bit because I've seen in multiple games where he goes Reaper into CC into Factory immediately. This Reaper is going going to die, by the way. And I don't think it saw the Twilight. There's almost no way that it saw it. But Funka, the best observer in the world, is going to confirm it for us. Unless this Dutch guy takes over again later. Like, I've seen it on the forums. He's pretty good too.
Oh yeah, he's pretty good at observing. Definitely a lot better at commentating.
Oh, damn.
All right, so we are looking here at these barracks now. Interestingly enough, ForGG just looks like he wants to defend. This is so interesting because ForGG is normally this guy we think of as being a bit gun-ho. Actually, there is a very fast concussive shells there. Looks like he could push across with a concussive time.
This could actually be kind of tricky when you open up with a Twilight as quickly as this, because he's also getting a robotics facility. This means that he doesn't really have a whole lot of production right now. And with this 3-Rex opening, it is very important that State Scouts
he actually just sent a probe in, and he did see the army moving down that ramp.
Exactly, that's very important. That helps him quite a bit. I still think it's going to be rather difficult. Of course, Photon Overcharge is phenomenal, and Stalkers can be very good. But he needs to drop Photon Overcharge like immediately. And you also want to make sure that 4G doesn't run into your main base. I would probably wipe in 1 sentry right now. A Zealot would be okay too, or a Stalker. Basically everything is okay, but the main thing is State doesn't have a whole lot of units. So I think the sentry on top of the ramp, I actually think that's the best call.
That should be really good. If he can force field that ramp and be really good at pulling those Stalkers back, this will be great. Nice Photon Overcharge, beautiful force field. The Stalkers have to micro really well here. The concussive shells limiting their ability to do that. Oh, very nice focus fire on the probes.
Yeah, I would pull the probes though, State. You're taking a little bit too much damage over here. You lost a couple of Stalkers as well. More and more probes will go down. Oh god, 9-10. This is actually devastating for State.
That focus fire is so impressive. Even going for the Mothership Core now. Is he going to be able to get it? Oh, the probes are pulled just in time. Mothership Core survives 1 Marine shot away from death.
Yeah, of course 4G lost quite a few bio units there, but completely worth it. Killed 3 Stalkers, killed 12 probes. Holy hell, that's so much. And if you guys wonder what did State do wrong there, I don't even think he did a whole lot wrong. I do think you should run away with the probes immediately, like just buy time. Kind of like it's a Widow Mine drop. Just send the probes to the corner and allow your Photon Overcharge to do more and more damage.
Yep.
But if you open up the way that State did, with Stalkers, a Twilight, and then a Robo for detection, that is extremely good in dealing with Widow Mine drops, right? Because you will have Stalkers, it's a fast-moving unit, but it's pretty rough against 3-Rex openings. I won't say it's a build order loss or something, but I've been in this scenario 100,000 times myself, and I too struggle with it. I think the Sentry was a good call. Otherwise, you won't even have Photon Overcharge, and all those units run into your main base, and things go from bad to worse. Like, if you think this was bad, if those units make it into the main base, it becomes twice as bad. He's going to end up losing 15, 16, 17 workers. It's just difficult. I think the only thing that State could have done better there is maybe Chrono boost out the gateway, so he would have 1 more unit as soon as he saw that army march across the map.
Spot on, a Zealot or 2 there does make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Just 1 or 2 Zealots, because either they shoot at the Zealot, which takes time to die, or they ignore the Zealot, and well, we all know that Zealot with those mighty blades do quite a bit of damage on Marines early on.
Zealots just love hugging Marines, man. Marines don't like it so much, though. ForGG has spotted the very fast 3rd Nexus from State. Now, State's taken some damage economically and then put down a very fast 3rd. This is a really very greedy, somewhat risky move. Yeah. And now, ForGG has spotted it, and we can see he's flicking that aggressive switch. Sure, he's adding his 3rd command center behind this, but he's got medevacs out. He's got that real mobility, and State just doesn't have a lot of meat in his army yet.
He may have seen a couple of these Marines being unloaded, because the Observer was on a position. Yeah, he has seen it. 1 Colossus is enough, though, because this is a very, very Marine-heavy army. So with 1 or 2 force fields, a Guardian Shield, this army from State is strong enough, but it's very hard for State to always be in position. ForGG, however, doesn't know yet that State is going up to 3 bases, and I can...
he did actually spot that early on with the Marine, yeah.
And I must say, he must be so surprised by this. He's like, man, this Protoss is crazy. He just ended up losing 12 probes. Now he's going up to 3 bases. What's wrong with this guy? Double starport immediately. This kind of tells me that ForGG has no intentions going up to a super, super long game. And even though he has 3 CCs, I wouldn't be super shocked to see him make a big push with a lot of Vikings and maybe even pulling the good old boys.
Oh yeah, it's such a great move on this map. There's a lot of space out in between that 3rd and natural, a lot of areas where you can set up that big, huge bio-concave that you want. Of course, State's rushed his economy up really fast, and something he's had to sacrifice is the upgrades. He's only just putting down his 1st forge now, and interestingly enough, as Funka, the best observer in the world, just pointed out, there's only 47 probes for State, so he is starting that probe production up now, 3 at a time, but he's actually got a very big Blinkstalker Colossus army right now.
He has 57 probes though.
Oh, 57. Oh, I actually misread that the wrong way around. Okay, a nice little lead there for State. That is actually very, very nice. And a DT shrine going down. Oh, okay, a little bit early. Quite an early investment for that.
I'm a little bit worried for State here because I can totally see that the the Viking numbers will spiral out of control real soon. He already has 6. He's squeezing out 4 at a time, or 2, 3, 4 at a time, pretty much at any given moment. So there's a chance that ForGG is going to fight against like 3 or 4 Colossus soon with 12 plus Vikings. And the moment that the Colossus die, like State's army is going to be absolutely rubbish. There's just no other way to describe it. Barely any upgrades, no charge yet, I believe. Is that correct?
No charge.
Yeah.
And you know what? This, if he does pull SCVs, this might hit before charge is even halfway done. Like this is actually getting so scary.
I know that he has
supply is just so high right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there we go. The SCV pool has fallen out of fashion a little bit, but this is absolutely a correct call by ForGG. I love it. There is no need to let this game go on any further. There is barely any damage output in this army of State. He's doing a lot of things at the same time right now, trying to get upgrades, trying to get a Templar Archives, trying to get a Dark Shrine. But the moment that these Colossus go down, there will be no damage output anymore in this army of State. He needs to drop some magnificent force fields. He needs to keep these Colossus alive. The Stalkers really need to do some work on these Vikings. 1 Colossus go down. I do like the force fields though. I would say just renew them for as long as you can and try to get a Viking here and there with your Stalkers. Don't shoot at the factory.
Oh, that factory just being so distracting. Oh, a couple of Stalkers overextending, getting sniped down by that bio. And State is low on force fields. His army is just so small right now. He needs to buy time, but for what?
Yeah, actually, I have no idea. Storm is nowhere near done, hasn't even started yet. There we go. Vikings just going to town on these Colossus, and the early economic damage that ForGG is really coming into play here. He needs to scan though, as there are a couple of Dark Templars in the mix, and it seems like ForGG is not realizing this, but even when he loses a couple units here and there, this Terran army was just so much stronger than the army of State.
Just such an overwhelming advantage here for ForGG, pushing in with the vast superiority in numbers. State going for a few too many things at once, just not having enough meat in his army, and ForGG is going to push in for the kill.
And let's not forget that he had a kind of a rough start as well. That final Colossus will go down. GG is called, and Millennium's ForGG did what perhaps we all expected him to do, but it hasn't always been smooth sailing for him. But he will secure his ticket to the quarterfinals of the Intel Extreme Masters, and he did it in a pretty convincing manner.
He looked very commanding there, very in control of those games, and also seemed to have a very good read on how his opponent was going to play. Everything he did just seemed to work out for him, so a very good good start here for ForGG.
Yeah, and what I liked a lot is that he is switching up his builds, that he's not always going for Reaper into Factory on maps like Iron Fortress, but make it hard for the Protoss to figure out what you're doing. Because 3 racks is a lot harder to deal with if you open up with a Twilight and a Robo, as we saw. State doing the correct thing with the Sentry, which I kind of I think I would like to see Sentry here. He went for it immediately, but I guess the only thing he could have done better is run away those probes. But as a Protoss early on, if you lose 12 workers against a Terran, it's going to get pretty rough.
Yeah, it was really, really hard there for him. It's one of those situations where you think, I've got Nexus Cannon, I've got 4 Stalkers, and he only really did glimpse the pressure moving out. He might not have fully realized how many units there were there, and maybe a chrono boost on those gateways, getting out an extra zealot or 2, delaying something else. Like
he only had 1 gateway, but even 1 zealot would already make the difference. I know that sounds silly, but it does make a difference, especially when you have Photon Overcharge working on these units. Either way, ForGG did what we all thought he would do, but he did it in perhaps a more convincing manner than some people expected him to do, and he's on the desk with Sean.
Thank you very much, Rotti and Pig. Congratulations to ForGG, our first place finisher. You've received 4 GGs today with beating both Lambo and now State on stage. Yeah, you like that? I pulled it in. Pretty easy day for you, or was it not? How do you think about this group?
I think I'm pretty lucky. I think my group easier than other group, so I expect first place.
I want to ask you about your games here. In map number 1, there was a lockdown. You were stuck in your main base. Were you always confident you were going to be able to break out of there easily and turn the game around with the Widowmine drop, or were you worried for a moment there?
After I see his Oracle and I defend almost perfectly. After that, basically I can't lose. I can do whatever I want, and yeah, very good.
What about map number 2? You you went for the aggression early on with a lot of bio, then you were able to kill quite a few units. From there on, did you already feel like you had won once again, or?
Basically, people I meet against Stat, I have no idea his style, his gameplay. But after first game, he played to me Oracle. And then I know second game, he don't do again Oracle. So I play very simple. I just don't think about Oracle and very easy.
We saw you struggle sometimes, back in WCS, you weren't in your best form. Are you back in your best shape ever here, or in a very good shape?
I don't know. I think I'm not really strong right now, so I need to practice. But I feel like I can back soon.
What do you think about every player that enters this tournament wants to win it, obviously. But what do you think about, MMA and Sue and Fantasy and Innovation? Is this scary for you thinking about playing them potentially?
No, I don't care any player. I'm always play. I'm the best, and I'm not afraid at all.
A quick question then before we finish this up. You've always said for a very long time, Terran versus Terran is your matchup. There's a lot of good Terrans in this. Are you still, maybe not be in the best form, but Terran versus Terran, how are you right now there?
Always my favorite matchup is TvT, but before last few tournament, I always lose in tournament. But my favorite is TvT.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, ForGG. First place finisher from Group C. Make sure to check out all action that you've missed so far. If you're just tuning in, because I do know that GSL is going on currently, you can go to plays.tv to see games that you've missed, and perhaps you can't watch tomorrow, so make sure to bookmark that page to check out games in the future. We're going to go to a quick break, and when we return, it's time to go down to the lower bracket.